So I hope everybody's well, and this video finds you in the best of health. What I wanted to do today was to speak about seeking in the subconscious mind. It's something that over the years I've spoken quite a bit about the role of the subconscious mind and about mindsets and what have you. And what I want to do today was to apply that into the whole area of seeking, because yes, we hear the statements like, we need to still the mind, and you're not your mind, you're not your thoughts. And yet those thoughts, that thinking is emanating from a mind that's thinking this into existence. The mind, as I've said before, is just a tool, and it gets a lot of bad publicity. And we love to beat up on our mind. But rather than beating up on our mind, why don't we look to actually have a look at the mind, especially the subconscious mind, and actually look into why we behave a certain way, we act a certain way. Like I said, there's so many people now who come to meetings, and they've read all the books, they know the language, they could probably do a better talk than even the speaker as well. And yet what you find is there's always something that holds them back. And even when it's brought up, what you find is like you'll literally say, look, this is just a little trap you've got yourself in. What you'll find is it's still not going to prevent them from ending seeking. And I think that's where we can take something like self-enquiry, really look to really use self-enquiry in the most honest and radical way to dig deep into our subconscious mind, to try and uncover those patterns. As we all know, a majority of our life is lived by the subconscious mind, I think about 80 to 90%. So what you find is most of what you're doing is completely and utterly unconscious. Using self-enquiry, what we can look to try and do is bring the unconscious into conscious focus, so we can actually look at this, see whether the pattern is actually supporting us, and then slowly but surely let that go. As I've said previously as well, the subconscious mind is more purposeful. It's there to help us survive. So it's not necessarily always going to be in our best interest, because it has these programs, and a lot of these programs are just there to make sure that each day is very similar to the next. As well as that, a lot of these programs are generational. A lot of these programs are conditioned into us, are external to us through an educational system. I think this is why Jean Piaget said, give me the boy, I'll give you the man. And it's been proven by psychology that over 80% of our programming has happened within the first 6 years of our lives. And these programs can invariably set us up to succeed in life, or they can set us up to fail in life. And what I find, especially within this whole field of self-realization, is that a lot of these programs are never really brought up. We never discuss these things. We just use these blanket general statements like, well, I'm not my mind. That doesn't mean that the mind is going to go away. That doesn't mean that the mind is going to somehow magically listen to that and just stop and silence itself, just so that you can have a look. It is serving a purpose. And it's whether we can use real honesty and real honest self-inquiry to look into ourselves, and like I said, make those patterns which are unconscious conscious, because then we may find that we will see why it is that we're still seeking. I remember reading once that sometimes people are going to talks and they're hearing the same thing over and over and over and over again, and then one day it just clicks. And we could look at that as simply as it's repetition. They've heard this statement so many times that what's happened is that it's literally seeped into the subconscious mind. It's been accepted, and other programs have been let go of that. So maybe through a combination of repetition, like example, going to talks, listening to videos, really immersing yourself in this subject, and also honest self-inquiry, what we may find is that we can really bring to the light that which is holding us back. Because I think if I had £1 for every time I'm in a talk and I'm literally saying to somebody, you do realize that's completely not illogical, and they'll agree, and yet the pattern carries on. And it's whether we can start slowly but surely bringing these patterns up, because like I said, a lot of these patterns, a lot of these conditioned responses aren't our own. They've been programmed in, whether generationally, whether through the education system, whether through our peer group. And self-inquiry offers us a real tool to really just dig into the recesses of the mind, and to try to bring up this information and to see whether it's something that's needed or not. I remember hearing about a certain satsang teacher many years ago who said that his attitude was that he was going to wake up by hook or by crook. So in that sense, his mind was actually used as a way to keep him going. And it's something you see in the self-help industry as well, that when there's resistance, you try to work through the resistance, or what have you, you keep going. There's this whole idea of persistence and consistency. And maybe if we were to take tools like that and attitudes like that, we may find that instead of using self-inquiry in a very superficial way of like, okay, I'm not the body and I'm not the mind, we may decide that, okay, we're going to go a little bit deeper. We're going to go into those places which are uncomfortable. We're going to be aware of the fact that we're going to go into these places which are uncomfortable. And what we're going to do is we're going to keep going, we're going to keep persistent, and we're going to be consistent in our efforts to inquire into nature of our existence. We may then find that we're actually engaged in actual self-inquiry. And as we let go of that which doesn't serve us, we will see more and more of that which serves us. This requires bravery, it requires courage, it requires a real honesty with yourself as to who you truly are. And it will mean facing some very uncomfortable emotions and some very deep resistance sometimes as well, as the mind tries to hold on to this idea of self, this illusory self, this story that, let's be honest, has kept us safe and has made sure that everything's been okay with us, and that can bring up a lot of discomfort when we start challenging programs. However, if we take our time, because sometimes I think there's this whole attitude of I've got to wake up right now. If we take our time and if we allow ourselves to be gentle in our inquiry as well, that we may find that gentleness coupled with consistency and persistence may allow the resistance to dissipate, allow us to, when we hit those points of resistance, to be able to really deal with that resistance from a place of elegance, as opposed to really just trying to take a hammer, to our resistance. In other words, it's more like, in a sense, using a scalpel as opposed to just running in, like a bull in a china shop. So that's a few ideas that we could look to try and use to really understand the subconscious mind and really delve into that, using self-inquiry, using a consistent approach, and really being persistent in our efforts. And what we may find is that we start seeing more of what we are. There is much more comfort then. There is much more ease. There isn't this pressure then to wake up, and we can really take our time, see the landscape around us, and really find that we are really now going into what's holding us back from realizing what we are, and also seeing that we then don't need these programs there. As we let that go, as I said just a couple of moments ago, we then let go of that which isn't, and what's left is that which is.